part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
Hi, everyone. What's good? And welcome to Cavs on the Break NBA podcast right here on the Press Play Podcast Network. Coming off a win over the Orlando Magic, we will be discussing that. I'm John Sabol, alongside the owner and writer of Hoops Wire, longtime Cavs and NBA writer, the great Sam Amico. Samuel, how you doing tonight, buddy?
John, I'm doing well. Good to see you again. Actually, I can see you while others can only hear you. So I guess I'm the blessed one because I've got the full visual of you smiling and having a good old time.
Wow, that is very kind of you to make me blush. I can see you as well. We are recording this here on Thursday night, the 7th. This is right before the Cavs go on a road trip. We'll be discussing that. Chase is sitting this one out, so you're stuck with us two. So enjoy the ride here as we kind of recap that Magic win in Cleveland at the Fieldhouse and look ahead, and then just kind of do all NBA a little bit here too. We'll touch on the play-in tournament a little bit, but first, Sam, you were there at the Fieldhouse on Wednesday, and the Cavs went on to beat the Magic 121-111. I watched from home. That was the first complete game the Cavs had played from wire to wire. You know, got to a lead, didn't blow it, almost did, and really played a complete game, really balanced scoring, and didn't make too many mistakes.
Yeah, well, now that they've had their starters back, I guess it's 5 straight games with the guys who were supposed to start that started to open the season, and obviously Mitchell, Garland, Strus, Mobley, and Allen. They've had those guys together now 5 straight games. They've won 4 of those. One of them was a bad Portland loss. I would say they've played their 2 most complete games in there, which would be, of course, at least at home, which of course would be the win over the Magic, and then I would say the win over the Hawks at home also was a game that you really never thought that they were threatened. They played a really nice full 48 minutes that night too. So, I think having these starters back has helped. The Portland thing, you got up 16. I think maybe you felt a sense of overconfidence. Portland wasn't as bad as their record. Obviously, they had beaten Indiana, who's super hot right now, before that. So I didn't think that loss was as, let's blow it up as everybody else was. But, yeah, against the Magic, one of those games that, Magic were a good team. Out of those 5 games that they've played with their starters in a row, the Magic was the first team they've beaten with that had a winning record. So, the Magic came in, 14-6, really playing well, young, hungry team, a lot of talent, a lot of depth. Been on a roll to open the season. So the fact that the Cavs kind of, took it to them, Magic came back in the game a little bit, but, this time the Cavs didn't really let their foot off the gas too much and put them away. So it was an impressive win, and a win you're going to need going on this road trip.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me was watching that game. Donovan had his 35 points, and he had a nice tandem in a second score, which always seems to be a challenge at times. It should be Darius Garland, and it was Darius with 26. And then you had Strus, who's been that third guy, and at times been that second scorer when Darius has either been hurt, not playing, maybe or struggling from the floor. And that balanced scoring, the Cavs had 5 guys in double figures with Niang coming with 10 points off the bench, which was huge for them. And Mobley again, 16 points. He seemed a little bit more. I know the stats, maybe the numbers and the rebounds. I think he only had 5 rebounds or so. You want to see more of that, but at times I saw with Mobley being a little bit more aggressive against Orlando, which was good to see.
Yeah, for sure. Especially in the second half.
Yep.
He was kind of a quiet first half, and had 6 points, I think it was, against Detroit, the game before that. So I just thought, is there something going on here? But he really, really came alive in the second half, had a lot of kind of those, was getting the ball around the basket, had a lot of those dunks off passes from Garland. And I just think that, you know, the one thing I'll say about Mobley is he never forces anything. So,
Yeah,
things were going pretty well for the
rarely.
rest of the team. I think that he was kind of, when he would get the ball, he wasn't looking to shoot because the other guys were doing such a nice job putting points up. So, but eventually he came around second half. He really, he was a big but quiet reason why the Cavs were able to maintain a double-digit lead most of the night.
So this wasn't asked in the post game, and I wondered this too. Jared Allen late in that game, I don't know, maybe like a minute left the bench, went to the locker room. That was never really like, what was the issue? Did he have like what was it, like a little injury? He didn't say anything in the post game that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
Are you aware of anything?
No, seemed okay. JB2 said he didn't.
Yeah.
He wasn't aware, didn't know. So, and Jared Allen didn't say anything post game about it. So I don't suspect. I think at this point, if there was something going on, we would have known about it.
I would agree. And the reason why I bring that up, because this segues to my next question, is you look at that game and, there's been a rotation shift, I think, that JB now you have his starters in there, right? He's been able to kind of get in a rotation, whereas at times the rotation's been off, but now you have, your starters are in, like everyone's healthy, everyone's back. So he's trying to find that happy medium right there of what seems to work. And Sam, at times it seems like the rotation that seems to be clicking is when Jared Allen is not on the floor. When you have a Mobley, Garland, Mitchell, Strus, Okoro or Niang, or when LeVert was healthy and not hurt playing. And the minutes kind of represent that a little bit. Jared Allen only played in 19 minutes yesterday.
Right. Yeah. Big part of that too was you look, Allen, Mobley, Strus had 5 fouls apiece. Allen got into foul trouble early.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a point there. I think Orlando took 37 free throws, which is,
that was crazy.
Almost unheard of. The first half and part of the second half, but especially the first half, there was just so many whistles and so many stoppages in play. One of the things I wrote in my dribbles column was some of those were fouls. Some of them were up for debate, and some of them were just flat out terrible calls. But when when a team's shooting that many free throws, but in Orlando's defense, a lot they were playing inside. That's a team that goes inside a lot, and tries to score at the basket. Obviously, they were 2 of 23 on 3-pointers, so they had no other choice but to try to draw fouls, get to the basket. But as far as the rotation goes, you look, you get everybody back now. You're missing LeVert. I don't think that's anything serious. Could be back here shortly. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have to, you'll be able to go a little bit deeper because Dean Wade came back, played pretty well. I can't remember how many minutes he had, but it wasn't a ton. But he was very productive in those minutes. I think he had 8 points, 5 rebounds, or something in those minutes.
Yeah, 14 minutes. Yep.
In 14 minutes. Yeah. So, you have your starters healthy. If you can keep your starters healthy, then obviously your bench is going to be. Those guys get more comfortable with their role. JB gets more comfortable with, this is how many minutes these guys get because I've gotten reps. Not only the players need reps, the coach does too. So as far as managing the game and managing the lineup. So, I think it's consistent. I know fans want to see more Craig Porter Jr. They're wondering why he hasn't played because he's played so well, which I think is a fair question. But, at times it seems like JB always wants either Darius or Donvan on the court. If not both of them, at least one. And that automatically is going to take minutes away from Craig Porter Jr. or Ty Jerome should we ever see him at any point this season.
Yeah. So a couple things to piggyback on that. So back to my original point. Do you notice that too, though? It seems like the Cavs don't have a set offense, so to speak, right? But it seems like the ball rotations with the smaller lineup with Mobley and not Allen seems to work a little bit better. Is that fair to say? At times so far. And it's a small sample size.
I would say, yeah, most of the time it seems to work.
And yes, he got into foul trouble against Orlando, but it just, I don't know. I wasn't sure if him getting off the court had something to do with like body language, or if he was upset, or if there was an injury. I don't know. Maybe it was frustration. Maybe it was all the above. I don't know. That's why I was kind of asking you about that, but also just to get your perspective, because from afar, it looks like the offense, they seem to have a little bit more continuity lately with that smaller lineup.
Yeah, I think so too. I think for the most part they do. Look, Allen's going to be up and down offensively. He had a very Jared Allen game against the Magic offensively, which is 4 or 5 shooting, 8 points, 11 rebounds. I mean, he makes his contributions where he does. He's not going to get the ball in the low post and put a lot of moves on guys.
Mm-hmm.
So, but he's going to have those nights where he has 23, 25 points. So it's just, it really, so much of the NBA is determined by matchups.
Sure.
If guys are feeling it, and Jared Allen, obviously, out of all the guys in the starting 5, probably the top 7, he's probably the last option offensively. So I think that there are just going to be some nights where he just doesn't have it going, but I wouldn't even say have it going. He's just not going to take a lot of shots. He's always very efficient and shoots a high percentage, though.
And he makes up for other things too. Defense, crashing the boards.
For sure.
Having that force in the paint, for sure. Okay, you mentioned LeVert. Let's talk a little bit of Cavs injuries real quick here. Ty Jerome hasn't seen the court yet this year. He played
2 games.
Sorry, 2 games, yeah. Right. But since that first week, he hasn't seen the court. He's been hurt. Any update on him, and any updates on LeVert that you've heard?
Last I heard about Jerome was he, was putting up shots a couple weeks ago. I don't think it was last week. It might have been the week before, and he was still having trouble landing on that ankle. And then I saw him. I guess it was the Portland game on the sideline. He had an air cast on. So, just last week, JB Bickerstaff said he thought that Ty was a ways away, and sometimes those.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Anytime you have an ankle injury, it can just take a high ankle sprain that can take 8 weeks. So,
sure.
If he's missed 6, he could miss another 3 or 4 still.
Yeah. And, it's Karras, it's interesting with his knee injury. He got hurt at the wrong time, because he was having his best start of the season of his career, it seemed like. And for this first month of the season, he was the best Cavs player. And now he's fallen out of the rotation because he's not in the rotation because he's hurt.
Yeah, he was really, like you said, for the first month, probably the best, the most reliable guy.
Sure.
Obviously, other than Mitchell when he's healthy, but it was a career start in Cleveland for LeVert. So, yeah, it's very unfortunate. And it makes the rotation, even though it's not a big deal, it's still one key piece is missing. It's not a big deal in that it's not Mitchell or Garland or a starter. And you have Okoro, too, but he's very, look, Isaac's great defensively, I should say very good defensively, but he's not going to usually match LeVert in terms of productivity offensively.
Yeah, we'll see how long it takes for him to get out, or get back, I should say. That's a bummer. But Cavs currently sitting at 12-9. They finally get a 500 record at home with that win. They've got a tough road ahead. We're going to get into that in a moment here on the other side of the break. A couple things I wanted to react to, Sam, is George Niang's comment about Donovan Mitchell. And this was more of a fun comment, but at the same time, he's a veteran like Donovan, obviously, but he's a good locker room guy, a great guy on the roster, to be fun loving. We've talked about him. We had him on the podcast at Media Day, but he said something, and you were in the locker room, and I wanted to get reaction to this. And correct me if I'm wrong or how this was worded, but Donovan said that, his teammates are holding him accountable. And George Niang had said something to him about, hey, you were quadruple teamed. You got to pass the ball.
Yeah. Well, George is not afraid to speak his mind. Obviously, he's tight with Donovan from their days in Utah.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, that was just it. And sometimes you will see that with Donovan, where it's like he's such a great individual player, and all great individual players. Sometimes it's like, look, I just want to be able to do this and make sure we win. And sometimes I do a little too much and try and do by myself a little too much. And I will see it sitting in the stands or in press row. See, see like, oh, sometimes it's not a bad idea. Like against Portland, it was just like, just give Donovan the ball and get out of the way. Other times it's not necessary. Strus or Garland or whoever is standing on the wing. And I, sitting a little bit above them, I can see that play, and then maybe Donovan still goes one-on-one, and I think he should have gave up there. And clearly, if I am thinking that way, certainly his teammates are going to be thinking that way. So, George Niang is very vocal. He's not just, we had him on the podcast, obviously, before the season. He's got a ton of personality. He's a regular guy, but he's a very vocal guy in the locker room when things aren't going well. And they all seem to appreciate it. They like that side of him. As far as we can tell, everything they're saying is that they like that side. And the Cavs, at one point, he went in the locker room. I think this was, they ended up winning 9 of 13 after George Niang kind of told them off in the locker room. The whole team. It wasn't just Mitchell. He just aired it all out, said, we're better than this. We've got to get it together. And some of his teammates talked about that and said, look, he's a guy who's, he comes across as a guy who's fun loving and going to have fun all the time. Yeah. And he is those things, but he's also, kind of like the voice of perspective, oftentimes in the locker room. And he's the one guy who really is so close to Mitchell that he could just go off on Mitchell and Donovan not even care, and Donovan appreciate it, So the fact that he said, look, you've got to start looking to pass the ball more. Obviously, with Donovan bringing that up and mentioning it, it meant something to him. So, and then he went out and scored 35 points anyway. But you know what? The idea that game, he had 35 points, and I would say 90% of them came within the flow of the offense. He didn't really need to force anything. And I see he's making a concerted effort, at least the last 2 or 3 games, to not, to try to not play. And it's hard. It's hard for Michael Jordan. I'm sure it was. LeBron's always been a great passer, but it's always hard when you have a great ability to score on anybody, anywhere, just about any time. To if you're going 1-on-1, it's hard for you to say, I'm going to give it up to somebody that I'm not so sure they're going to get a basket. I'm pretty sure I will. So, right. But in order to win and to win in playoff situations, and we saw the Cavs without Mitchell go into Philadelphia and win that game, and that's because they played, trusting each other. And I don't get me wrong, Donovan Mitchell's not selfish, and I would never put him in that category. He's actually a great teammate.
Sure.
But
I would agree.
With any type of greatness, it's hard to sacrifice in a team game because you can. He has the ability to take over games. So there's a fine balance there, and I think that he's I think he's pretty much mastered it, but is still obviously, working on that element of his game. And I Mitchell is not going to be a guy who's going to say, no, I need to do it myself. He's going to try to win within the concept of the team.
Yeah. And you know what? That's a good thing, because here Donovan is the epitome of a selfless person. At times he could kind of get trapped in a playing hero ball, but he's a very unselfish player, and he's also open to criticism. And you bring up a great point. People forget, maybe the casual Cavs fan doesn't realize or remember that he and Niang were tight in Utah, and that's the big reason why George signed the deal, because Donovan recruited him to help him come here to Cleveland. So when you have a guy like that, you can say whatever you want. I just thought it was a good sign for him to say that, and Donovan to bring it up, because it just goes to show, like, this is an open locker room. This is something that we all need to talk about, and we need to air out our grievances if there are any, or we need to come together and we need to, talk about everything, because you need to put your ego at the door. And really, that's a big thing, and I think it's a sign of maturity with teams and with the Cavs. And I think when you have a guy like Niang and a guy like Max Strus, who comes from that Heat culture, or he's got that finals experience, he's a no BS guy, opposite end of the spectrum guy versus Niang in terms of goofball. He's always business. It's hard to crack a smile with him or show personality, which is okay, but you have that balance. Not everyone needs to get along with everybody, but you all have to have a common goal and all have to have that common understanding more than anything. And it seems like we're slowly starting to see that with the newer guys, which takes time when you add new pieces.
Yeah, when Max Strus smiles, I get nervous because I'm like, he's going to say something angry or sarcastic.
Yeah.
It gives me anxiety. But one time I was in the locker room, and we, there was a group of reporters, maybe 2 or 3 of us, talking to Dean Wade, and Yang's in the background and just yelling, he needs to shoot the ball more. I always tell him he needs to shoot. I mean, he's just yelling. Well, we're trying to interview Dean Wade. He's very vocal, almost like a coach that says stuff that a coach can't really say and doesn't really approach the players about. Niang will just let loose. So really, it's nice, I think, for the Cavs to have that kind of personality on the team. Tristan Thompson, obviously, being another guy who is pretty vocal leader, and uses the fact that he's been there before a lot as kind of his method of teaching.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here. We're going to talk about the Cavs' schedule ahead, this tough road trip coming up here, and then touch on the NBA play-in tournament momentarily, because there was a game out in Vegas tonight. If you're listening, we're recording this here on Thursday, December 7th. There was a game, and as anybody that has listened to previous podcasts know that I am not a fan of this tournament. I'm glad the Cavs are not in it. And Sam is okay with it, but on the same page a little bit. But there's a big thing that happened in this tournament between that Bucks and Pacers game we want to talk about. We'll get into that in a moment. But first, since you're listening to us, you can't see us. Sam and I are on Zoom at both of our houses, and you can't see the shirts that we're wearing. We are wearing brand spanking new Homage t-shirts. If you are from the Cleveland area, Columbus, you all know this company that is helping us out here. Boy, they have designed quite the array of NBA gear, Cavs gear, Major League Baseball, NFL official licenses. Sam, what Homage shirt are you wearing of the Cavaliers at the moment? What is that? Is that your boy, Austin?
Austin, I'm so old school. It's Austin Carr as a player, and I'm sad to say that I don't remember I don't remember Austin as a player, just as a fan favorite, as a color analyst and in-game analyst. But I have watched him on YouTube and all that. So yeah, when I saw this shirt, I was just like, I have to have it. It's AC, not only as a player in the old school Cavs uniform, but of course the AC I know and love, always smiling about something. So yeah, it's perfect for me. I love NBA history and old school stuff, and the fact that I would consider it Austin Carr a friend. I just very much look forward to wearing this T-shirt in front of him and having him tell me how great I am because I'm wearing it, probably for no other reason, but at least he'll tell me I'm great.
AC's always smiling, and if I want to be around him when you wear that shirt in front of him, because his grin's gonna get even bigger and bigger.
I think we should meet at center court at halftime or something in front of fans. That would be my goal.
You know what? I'll wear my Homage shirt that I got of the NBA Cavs NBA Jam shirt had the stats of Mark Price and Brad Daugherty. That's the one I have.
Yeah.
They were nice enough to send me another one. It was a gray with the old school Austin Carr era Cavs wine and gold script on it. I know Chase was rocking a wine hoodie with the new Cavs font on the front of it. Just some awesome products there. Perfect gift this holiday season. So if you can, go on our show notes here, wherever you're listening to your podcast, on Spotify, on Apple, or any other location there, wherever you're seeing our description of our show, scroll on down. You'll see the link. You can buy your Cavs gear, Browns, Guardians, Ohio State, MAC, you name it. Great quality product right there on the Homage website. Go on our show notes, click that link there, and enjoy yourself a nice, warm, cozy hoodie. Anything you want. Makes a great holiday gift here in time for Christmas here in a few weeks. All right. With that being said, we'll be back, go over it, play-in tournament and the Cavs schedule ahead, and much more right after this.
Cavs on the Break listeners, listen up. The NFL season is going strong, and DraftKings Sportsbook is hooking up new customers with an offer that's even stronger. Bet $5 on any game this week to score $200 instantly in bonus bets, and DraftKings isn't stopping there. All customers can take advantage of a sweeter offer. Get in on game day greatness. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code P3Cavs. New customers can score $200 instantly in bonus bets when you bet $5 on the NFL. That's code P3Cavs only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours. A gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problems gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, licensed partner Golden Nugget, Lake Charles, Louisiana, 21 years age or over, varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources.
What's up, everyone? I'm Holly Wetzel.
And I'm Tybus Powell.
And we are your hosts of The Orange is Oranger, a Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network. We give you all the dog pound coverage that you'll need to get you through the regular season, hopeful postseason, and I'd say off-season, Tybus, but is there really ever an off-season for this team?
Thankfully for our podcast, Holly, there really never is when it comes to the Cleveland Browns. Don't miss our breakdown of each week's matchup, game recaps, and any and all news out of Berea to feed your Browns appetite. As we know, Holly, dogs gotta eat.
Yes, they do. So hit that subscribe button and never miss an episode of the Orange is Oranger, Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network.
What's up, everyone? Chase Smith here, host of the Chase Smith Podcast, and my podcast reflects who I am. My hobbies, my interests, my passions, my curiosities, my careers, my questions, and my family. I'll spend time talking about all types of sports, movies, TV shows, trending news stories, and other cultural events, and even faith. This is who I am, and I hope I can get to know you as well. Join me on the Chase Smith Podcast, and let's have some thought-provoking conversations, only on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Looking for new insights on the Cleveland sports scene with a unique side of Cleveland sports history? Then you found the perfect podcast. I'm John Sabol.
And I'm Scott Sabol, and we're hosts of the Sabol Brothers on the Baseline podcast, a podcast about Cleveland sports, but not your typical podcast about the land's sports teams. Join us as we embark on a journey of sharing a unique and historical side of Cleveland sports history with the help of some former Cleveland sports stars and other historical figures.
All right here on the Sabol Brothers on the Baseline podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
We're back here at Cavs on the Break NBA podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network. John Sabol alongside Sam Amico, owner, writer of hoopswire.com.
Head janitor as well.
Is that what that is? Is that your other title?
That's my other title. Yeah.
I didn't want to say it because I wasn't sure if you're cleaning up the mess, but there isn't any really messes over at Hoopswire.
No, you know what? But we had a wild Christmas party. Me and the cat.
You and the cat. I love it.
Yeah.
Maybe
a lot of cleanup after that.
Too many bowls of spilled milk, that's for sure. All right. NBA in-season tournament. one of the semifinals. Both of them were played tonight. Bucks, Pacers, Indy won. Lakers, Pelicans, LA won. I'm not a big fan of this tournament. I'm glad it's over. It's going to be over. The only best thing about this tournament are the cool floors. But you watched that Pacers Bucks game, and we don't need to talk about this a lot, but I didn't see a minute of it. So I was taking your word for it. You said there was no one there at that game in Vegas?
Yeah, no, not for that one. Obviously, the Lakers drew a crowd with them being the Lakers and having LeBron James and being very close to Las Vegas. At least probably I would say San Diego is obviously the closest city to Las Vegas, right? It's like a 4-hour drive.
Then Phoenix would probably be up there too, right?
Phoenix might be up there, yeah. But anyway, so that game did well. I saw the funny thing was the arena where the seating was you know how they used to do it in the old days where they would blacken the seats, they'd turn the lights off above the seats.
Yeah,
That's how this was. Yeah, that's how this was for the Pacers game. But the crowd was bad. I wrote a story on HoopsWire earlier when that game tipped off that an NBA source, guy who works for the NBA, texted me and said this crowd is a major disappointment. I don't know that the NBA really was expecting a whole lot. First of all, that game tipped off at 5:00 Eastern, which was 2:00, I believe, in Las Vegas
on a Thursday.
On a Thursday afternoon. I just thought, you're right. Okay, if you're going to do one of those games, why not have the Lakers Pelicans game first? You know, why not have that at 2:00, and then you're going to draw a crowd, and maybe that'll lead into the Pacers Bucks game. But look, the Pacers and Bucks, as nice of seasons as they've had, and as long as they've been around, they don't have a huge national following. They have a big local following. You know, Milwaukee, the Bucks, they love the Bucks. They won a championship a couple of years ago. Pacers, Indiana basketball is huge, but you go outside of that area, and that's a problem. You know, it's I don't want to say a problem, but there's just not. You know, it's probably the same thing with the Cavs without LeBron. They probably don't have a ton of fans living around the country that would go to a game in Vegas at 2:00. That's just the NBA. It's, you know, that's just the way it is. You have like the Lakers are a huge story. The Celtics are always a big story. And then
the Knicks,
you know, the Knicks are up there. But the fact that this tournament, you know, thank goodness for the NBA. And say what you will about that controversial win over the Suns, but thank goodness for the NBA that the Lakers made this Final Four, because the crowd was not good for the Pacers and Bucks. And could you imagine, it probably wouldn't be a whole lot better for the Pelicans and the Suns, as much as, you know, the Suns have a decent following with Durant and all them, but they're not the Lakers. So, yeah, I think. I just think I kind of thought it was weird that they were going to do this Final Four in Vegas during the week. I thought maybe if you did a Friday, Sunday, you'd have better luck. But you're also playing this game. I think the reason they started the Bucks Pacers at 5:00 was so that they wouldn't have to go head to head with Thursday Night Football. Because if they did, the television ratings, I'm sure they were bad for that game. They would have been off. Nobody would have watched it at all.
But that's probably the reason why they had those games earlier in the day, you know. And you put the Lakers later because you're trying to get that later Eastern Eastern fan base in there. I think the big reason why you're putting it in Vegas is players love to be in Vegas. That's going to be a site for a future team whenever the NBA expands again, who knows when that's going to be. You know, didn't LeBron say he wanted to be an owner of a basketball team in Las Vegas at some point down the road?
LeBron has said that. LeBron has said that repeatedly. He reiterated it. And then I know Shaq wants to own a team there too, and said, I'd like to own one with or without LeBron. So I think that Vegas is eventually going to have an NBA team. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's funny that they do this in the tournament there, which they're trying to broaden that NBA market there. They had the All-Star game there about 15 years ago too, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Which was a big success. But what I find interesting though is your source said they were disappointed in the attendance, yet the attendance numbers would say otherwise. They said 16,837 people attended the Bucks Pacers game, and like over 18,000 attended the Lakers Pelicans game. Yes, we all know teams and leagues like to inflate numbers. It's been going on for 50, 100 years in a lot of sports, but that is such a obvious inflation of the numbers. It's not even funny.
Yeah, and I don't know why. I don't know why and when that started. Like, let's inflate the numbers. Why? So you could just say, "Hey, look how many people like it. You should like it too." I guess that's it. Here's my thing with the in-season tournament, John, and I do like it. I think it's cool. There are things about it that I think are cool.
You just like the courts, Sam.
I love the courts. I'm such a traditionalist. This is so bizarre for me to say, but I love
and that's why I'm so shocked that you like the courts, because you know.
Yeah, I'm so old school.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody, I miss the Mecca. Remember the old Mecca when
Mecca
Bucks
Milwaukee.
played that ugly court. But yeah, I don't know why. I just these courts grabbed me. I will say this. Here's my main issue with the in-season tournament, and I think it's probably the NBA. The league's main issue is why. Okay, first of all, why was this designed? What was the point? To create interest in regular season basketball games. My issue is, and I think they've done that, but my issue is, if you're a business, you always want to bring in new customers, right? You always want to, I know at Hoops Wire, I want to bring in people who don't really read it yet. I want those people to come read it regularly. If you're the NBA, that's what you're looking for. I think part of this tournament, and I think it's probably failed in that area. I don't think it's been enough to draw in people who don't already care about the NBA or weren't already paying attention. My oldest son he's a huge NFL fan. He's not much of an NBA fan, despite what his father does. Maybe because of what his father does. I don't know. But he didn't really even, he said, what is going on with this tournament? What's it mean? Blah, blah, blah. And I told him, he was very skeptical of it. And he, I told him, explained it to him. I said, they're playing on these cool courts and, it's just something to get excited about during the regular season. And he didn't watch any of it. It didn't draw him in. So, and, the middle boy watched some, but he would have watched anyway. You know what I mean? And when I see all these people saying what a great idea it is, it's always people who work in the NBA or play in the NBA or coaches or media members. And that doesn't do the NBA any good because they've already got those people. You know what I'm saying? Those people have been the voice and face and spokespeople for years. People like me who love it and we're going to watch anyway. Well, it doesn't help having somebody like me love it because I was already going to watch. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
my whole point of this is, yes, it's creating some more buzz, but is it creating more buzz amongst people other than the people who would already be watching? Are you bringing in new viewers, and are you turning some people away and making them skeptical and making them, this is stupid? Because I know nobody's going on the record with this. I know plenty of people who think this is really dumb. And
I'm one of them. I'm one of them.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying like people who work in the NBA or former players. I know a lot of people who are just like, what are they doing here? Sure. Now, I think that it's okay because you need to change some things. You can't have everything like the quote unquote good old days. I think that it's good to reinvent things. And I think that this is a good idea and I think it's cool, but I don't know that you're going to profit at all. And I think that Pacers-Bucks game, as good of a game as it was, bombed in terms of being able to help push forward and sell the NBA. And I don't know that the Lakers-Pelicans game did a whole lot either.
Yeah, listen, like I've been very outspoken about it. I think it's a waste of time. The NBA only really did this because it's the ratings in the regular season keep plummeting. I think the idea of the courts were cool. Neutral site cool. There's just not enough buzz for a casual fan to be like, what is going on here? And I don't know if it can work. I don't know how else they can change to make this more appealing to casual fans. Like, you bring up your son as an example. I can tell you, working at Fox 8, I have so many people that come up to me who are big Cavs fans. They're like, what is with this tournament? How does this work?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? I don't know. I've talked about it a ton of times, but I forget. It's so convoluted with the just the rules or the placements. I mean, the Cavs went 3-1 and didn't make it. Like, it's point differential, blah, blah, blah. It's just, it's silly. You got to make it easier for fans, casual fans to.
Here's what you do, John. I can fix that right now.
All right, what would you do?
What you do next year? Give 2 teams a bye. 2 teams that have the best record through 12 games. Okay, say there's some teams that are tied 11-1 or whatever. Then you just have an off-court tiebreaker somehow. So those 2 teams get a bye. Everybody else, single elimination. That's it. No group play, no records, no standings. Because guess what? It's not a tournament if you don't have single elimination the whole time.
Right, but if that's the case, you do single elimination, then you're going to get. Then would you lose appeal? Would you think just from the draw? You want things to be drawn out for it to last longer. You want it to
be drawn out, but guess what? I think it would be. Yeah, like let's say the Cavs got in, lost their first game, then the tournament's over for them.
It's basically the play-in tournament, play-in game for the playoffs under your.
Yeah, I just think you have single elimination. I think it would be number one, way less confusing.
True.
And number 2, just more entertaining. I think I don't know. Look, I mean that's just off the top of my head, but I agree with you. I had so many people asking me to explain this to them, and I was fairly happy when the Cavs didn't make it so that I could stop explaining it
me too.
To my friends and family and readers in Cleveland. So, look, I give them points for trying. I don't know that it's going to be something that is going to
stick.
Really win over fans. I don't know if it's going to stick. I guess if you're Adam Silver, this was kind of your brainchild. Are you gonna bite the bullet and take a hit to the ego and say, yeah, that wasn't what I was hoping for? Or more likely, knowing the NBA and the PR people, and I love them all very much, but my guess is they're more likely going to say it was a huge hit. And we can't wait to do it again next year. That's okay.
If you're the Cavs, if you're a Cavs or an East Coast team, I think the last thing you'd really probably want to do is to go all the way out to Vegas to play in the semifinals team or tournament. Yes, there's off the court fun stuff there. Don't get me wrong, but is that something you really want to deal with to get away from any type of momentum you have close home? Whatever. I don't think there's a perfect fix to it. People in the NBA circles would probably tell you it's a success. I don't think it is. I'd love to see the ratings once everything is done and go from there and see the overall attendance if it's not inflated, which by the way, it doesn't really matter if I see the attendance because it will be inflated. But at any rate,
clearly. Well, I think, I don't know. I don't know that anybody, for instance, and I don't want to belabor this, but I don't know that anybody went to a Pistons game thinking, well, at least we have the in-season tournament that we could win. I think that if you were going to go to the Pistons-Cavs game in Detroit, it's because you just were going to go. I don't know that the in-season tournament. I don't think anybody bought a ticket thinking, hey, it's an in-season tournament game. Let's go buy tickets. Let's get up there and watch this tournament. I don't think that there was that kind of, whereas like obviously an NBA playoff game, people were going to be like, yeah, I got playoff tickets, dude. Nobody's going to be saying that about the in-season tournament. I can tell you that I think most other American sports leagues, like the NFL and baseball, are probably like, what are these guys doing? It's definitely. I give Adam Silver credit for innovation, but I just don't
he's
know.
Trying something. Yeah, I've had a couple of people from the Browns be like, "What are they doing over there?" I'm like,
yeah.
Players and people that work for the team are like, how does this work? I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I do know
that's the best answer. I'm
just going to confuse you and confuse myself. Then I'm going to give you the wrong information again. But anyways, but by the way, you bring up the Pistons. I think only reason why people would want to go see the Pistons is because you want to see them beat the NBA record for consecutive losing streak extending to, what is that, 18 as we sit here on the 7th? My
18,
goodness.
And I could tell you the Pistons as an organization and the PR people are wonderful. And therefore, if they get to that point where they have a home game, the record obviously for one season is held by the Cavaliers and 76ers, tied at 26 straight losses. If the Pistons get to 24, 25, if they get to 26 and they have a home game, I'm going to go up there.
You got to.
I gotta. And I'll write from a Cavs perspective. I'll write, the monkey's finally off our back if you're Cleveland, because you lifted that weight. The Pistons left that. And I think they've got a real good shot of breaking that record because they had the Memphis Grizzlies, the wounded Memphis Grizzlies at home Wednesday night and lost. They lost to the Memphis Grizzlies.
They've got Orlando. They've got Orlando, Indiana, Philly, Milwaukee, their next 5. And then Atlanta.
Watch them beat Philly one of those games.
Yeah, back to back.
They've been playing. I mean, they've had some close games, but
All right. Well, speaking of the schedule, real quick before we end this podcast, let's talk about the Cavs road ahead here. They've got a tough schedule. Miami, Orlando, and the back-to-back of Boston. A rare back-to-back away games. That's a new scheduling twist that started this year in the NBA. Or no, I'm sorry, it started last year, I believe.
Yeah.
I hope the did the Cavs fly down there today? Are you aware?
Yeah.
Okay.
They flew to Miami. Yep.
All right. So if that's the case, are we just going to pencil them in for a loss on Friday, just suffering from that quote unquote Miami flu? You know what I'm saying? Like,
are you going to be like Chase and make me pick each of the next 4 games?
No, we're not going to do that. We're running out of time anyways. But the Miami flu is a real thing, Sam.
Sure. Well, I mean, I probably had it. You're in your 20s. You go to Miami. You got a free night. Could be, but you never know. Look, I mean, to me, it's like Miami's not been playing that great lately. Jimmy Butler came out and said the other day, guess what? We're mediocre. We have a mediocre offense. We've been mediocre defensively. We're average. So, and Miami is that way in the regular season. Look at them last year. They were average, and then they got to the finals. So, you could potentially steal one there. I think you've got to, this is a really, we always talk about these West Coast trips, but this East Coast swing here is just a nightmare because Orlando's playing so well.
Right.
And Miami's, you never know what you're going to get from them. And then you've got Boston, who's the best team in the East right now, back to back on their court. So those are tough. And, the Cavs had Boston's number a little bit last year. And I'm sure they remember that. The Cavs went there and remember that game last year, won in triple. Was it triple overtime?
A double overtime early in the season, right? And the Cavs won.
Very early. Yeah.
They didn't have Darius that game, I don't believe.
Right, because LeVert went nuts. Mitchell went nuts, and LeVert went
they both
nuts.
had Mitchell and LeVert both had like 40-some points that game. I remember that. Yeah, Darius was out
had one the next game. So the next game he had one.
He had one. Yeah, Miami's lost 4 of the last 6 games. They're struggling a little bit. No, I think the Miami flu is a real thing. But one thing I will say, if you want to think of the Cavs here, is Max Drew said after the game against the Magic on Wednesday that that win was big for them going on this road trip. They want to come back and beat Miami after Miami stole one from them a few weeks ago. So I think that focus should be where we all hope it is, and this is a good measuring stick on where they're at from not just a skill set on the court, but a mental makeup off the court. And if they've got to take, I don't want to say turn that corner, but change a little bit there. The Orlando game will be interesting because you just played them. And now you're going to play them again, but you're going to play them at their house, and then the back against Boston. Boston's just the beast of the East right now, and I mean they're 9-0 at home. Think about that. Entering this game, Boston is 9-0 at home. Sam, they haven't lost a game. They're playing 2 against the Cavs, so that's tough sledding ahead to a Boston team that's got the best record or the second best record in the NBA behind the
next to the mighty Minnesota Timberwolves,
which came out of nowhere, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, Boston at 15-5. So, hey, second big trip for the Cavs. This is an East Coast. If they can come out of this 2-2, that's a massive success.
I mean, I think if you're the Cavs, you don't think about anything but Miami. But I think if they can win one, you want to win one of these, and I think that'd be okay.
Yeah, I would agree. I think two would be the best, obviously. Well, 4 would be the best. But you know what I mean? If we're being realistic here, it's tough to do that. But we'll see what they can do. Cavs, and if you're listening to this on Friday, they're playing tonight then, I guess you could say, or playing, and then they've got the Magic Monday, and then Boston Tuesday the 12th, and then Thursday the 14th there, and then they're back home on Saturday the 16th against the Atlanta Hawks. All right, that will wrap it up to this edition of the Cavs on the Brink NBA podcast. Follow the pod on Twitter, or X as the kids now call it, at Cavs on the Break. Follow yours truly at John_Sabol. Follow Sam at Amico Hoops on Twitter. And then, of course, get all your latest Cavs and NBA news at hoopswire.com. If you haven't already, keep that as your homepage. It's on mine. And I read Sam every day. I read his halftime dribbles all the time. I criticize his halftime dribbles. Then he criticizes me with funny emojis.
That's how it goes. That's usually how it goes.
That's how it goes.
Accurate.
You know, as we're wrapping this up here, I got SportsCenter in the background, and they're showing the in-season tournament highlights, and they're showing the players walk down this tunnel with the trophy of the cup, and LeBron just walks by it like, what is this? Zion Williamson walks by and smiles at it. It's just funny.
Damian Lillard went up and touched the cup, and a reporter said, "Don't touch it. That's bad luck." And guess what happened? The Bucks lost. That's why you walk by the cup coolly if you want the NBA Cup.
Man.
And
the elusive, I'm going to call it the elusive gold chalice.
I hate to make fun of the tournament. I really do. But, part of me really wants to. But I make fun of myself for liking it so much. So,
it's last point on that. It's the low hanging fruit right now in the NBA season in December.
Sure. Yeah. I gotcha. I agree.
Hey, by the way, before we wrap this up, for sure, did you see what LeBron did tonight?
I did not.
He scored on 20. He scored or assisted on 24 consecutive points against the Pelicans.
At 38 years, he can be 39 in a couple of weeks.
Jeez, Sam,
is that not amazing? I didn't watch that game because I was too busy rooting against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
That was an awful game,
as I always do. And they lost to the 2-10 Patriots at home, so it went well for me.
It did. All right, enough of Sam, enough of me. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll be back next week right here on Cavs on the Break, NBA podcast, right here on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Congratulations, Cleveland. Your decades-long wait is finally over. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.